Ladies and gentlemen, in this video we'll be talking about AMD's Strix Point's release date as well as Navi 32, a price update to the RTX 4070, perhaps a little cheaper than many of you may have predicted, and finally, the RTX 4060 Ti has received quite a cut in its power consumption and some updated specs, and we're going to get right into it after this message from the video's sponsor. If you're running a copy of Windows 10 which isn't activated, of course, not only do you have to worry about the missing customization options, but there's also that annoying Windows desktop watermark reminding you to activate. Today's video is sponsored by WhoKeys.com, and they have an excellent price on Windows 10 Professional as well as home keys. Yeah, and they also of course sell games. I've bought a few Windows 10 keys with my own personal account to test everything was legit and worked in preparation for this sponsored video. You can pick up one of their keys for 25% off using the coupon code RGT in the checkout. There's links to their website in the video description. Also, if you're building a few systems, there's bundles available too. Again, you can check out WhoKeys.com and use the coupon code RGT for 25% off the listed Windows 10 key prices. So let's get right into the release date for Strix Point. The product is scheduled to be announced at CES 2024, so this is basically 12 months from right as the time I'm producing this video. In my last video, I also mentioned that we're looking at a Zen 5 based CPU with 8 cores, 16 threads for its high performance cores, and 24 RDNA 3 plus CUs. A small update to this, someone who probably doesn't want me to point out who they are, also reminded me that there was a leaked image which popped up late last year. This shows that we have actually confirmation Strix Point A exists, and B, it's a combination of Zen 5 and Zen 4, with Zen 4D being the quote little cores. I've also had a couple of people DMing me asking if it's a mono design, and as far as I'm aware, yes. So Strix Point will be a monolithic design. As for N32, I'm hearing that Computex will be the announcement date. I want to put an asterisk here that I still don't know if this is solid, because this date has changed so many times. In fact, there were even some reports that it would be at AMD's January CES event, and well, it wasn't there. I've only heard a single source tell me that it will be at Computex, but they have been pretty reliable in the past. I'm mentioning it here because we've already talked about Strix Point, and a number of people have asked me what's going on with N32, because, well, obviously budget range options from AMD would possibly add some pressure to Nvidia's lineup. So I'm throwing this out there. Hopefully though my information is wrong and we'll hear more about N32 much earlier than this. But as for Nvidia's mid-range, let's talk about RTX 4070 for a moment. You might recall that recently I leaked some box photos as well as some updated specifications, several days ago in fact. Kopitai7 Kimi has actually confirmed on Twitter that this is true, although obviously with any product that hasn't seen a release until it's officially announced by Nvidia. Wait, we had the 4080 12GB. Let me just take that back. Until it's officially available on store shelves. There we go. It doesn't actually exist. But as a small update, a source got back to me and told me that the price point so far that Jensen and his team are looking at is $599 to $650 US. So that's the MSRP. So obviously, you're going to get some AIBs and some companies which take the absolute piss. But yeah. Basically, $599 seems to be the lowest price point. Now, this could change because don't forget that the 4070 Ti, not the 4080 12GB, but the 4070 Ti, actually was rumored to be $100 more expensive than it ended up actually launching at. So, possibly speaking, $599 is about as high as I actually think this card should be, given the specification difference between the 4070, as I mentioned previously in that video went over the specs, and the 4070 Ti. Its performance is going to be around RTX 3080 to 3080 Ti, depending on resolution, whether it's got ray tracing, and so on and so on. Obviously, with the 40 series cards, you do get things like improved ray tracing performance. I got there in the end, and of course, other features like DLSS 3. I think this card would be absolutely phenomenal if it was at a cheap enough price point for something like a 1440p GPU. But obviously, at the end of the day, with any of these things, A, availability is incredibly important, and B, and possibly the most important aspect of any of these cards, is the price, especially since we're starting to see now RTX 30 cards becoming more prevalent on things like eBay. And finally, well actually there's another finally after this finally, but for this finally, the RTX 4060 Ti has had a specification update. Thanks to Compute i7 Kimi, we're looking at 160 watts for its power consumption, and that's with AD106 and 4352 CUDA cores and 8GB of RAM. Now curiously, almost on the same time that he's put this out in public, one of my good sources actually told me that they've also been hearing of a test board which is AD104 based with 12GB of memory. They didn't state the number of CUDA cores though. Now, I don't know if I necessarily put tons of stock in this. I'll wait until I've heard some confirmation. I'm putting this out as a, that's interesting. Hopefully we hear more about this soon. But yeah, it's going to be interesting if they do end up squeezing 12GB of RAM on the card. I'm kind of skeptical personally. So at the moment, I'm still going with Compute i7 Kimi's specifications. 160 watts though is actually really nice. It's considerably less than the RTX 30 cards of the same kind of, performance, echelon. I think that would be really nice for a small form factor system. As always, it's going to depend on things like pricing, which is going to be obviously the real killer. RTX 4070 Ti at the moment is selling extremely well, which obviously means at the end of the day, whether you like the prices of the RTX 40 and RDNA free cards or not, the reality is people are buying them, and I know this is going to be pretty obvious to say, but if people are buying them, that's giving Nvidia all the signals they need to just be like, oh, okay, then, well, I guess we're going to keep the cards at these prices then, huh? One last thing, CableMods have actually had a couple of stories floating around that their connector basically went on fire. The reason I'm covering this is because they actually responded on Twitter that this is basically user error. And long story short, the person didn't plug the connector all the way into the RTX 4090. I'm just mentioning this because, as I said, there were a couple of stories floating around that this has occurred, and I think it's good just to, keep everyone up to date. Speaking of everyone being up to date, I just want to mention, you can close out the video now if you're not interested in personal stuff, but I have now physically finished moving. There are a couple of other bits I need to do, like paperwork, like changing my address, that type of thing. But over the next couple of days, that should be resolved, and hopefully my normal upload schedule and productivity will resume. I can only apologize to everyone. I quite literally have not been, even with internet access that's been worth a damn for the last like 5 or 6 days, because I was at my old flat and they basically cut off the old internet because obviously I didn't want to pay another bill, so it was basically tethered internet. And then irony of irony, Free, which is the cell phone service that I'm using within the UK, just happened to have some problems in that area with their masts. So I was like, oh, this sucks. But yeah, things will return, to normal over the next couple of days. And I've got a couple of really nice projects and some big leaks upcoming, so hopefully that will be starting to come out next week, I think. But anyway, hope you're all having an amazing day and staying safe. I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.